I initially thought someone had struck a deer with their car. There was blood spilling out of Karen's hose, foaming with a strange pinkish tint, running down her driveway, while her screams echoed as though she were in mortal danger. But no, it was just another Tuesday, and karma had arrived. No, this isn't some fictional tale. This is what unfolds when a woman like Karen, who's a part of a made-up neighborhood group, decides to take on the wrong person in the wrong place. Let me introduce myself. I'm the guy whose private well Karen decided to tap into for watering her garden. How did I react? Well, I didn't just give her a warning. I flushed her system with sewage. Oh, and that was only the start of the fun. Now, you're probably wondering, how did that even happen? And how did she not notice? Well, let's rewind 3 months back when things were still normal for the most part. I live on a piece of land that used to be the edge of town. It's a 10-acre plot that's been in my family for over 4 decades, long before they decided to build a cookie-cutter neighborhood right next to us. I've got chickens, a few pigs, rabbits, and a goat named Bonnie, who judges everyone. Nothing fancy, just enough to be self-sustaining. I sell a bit of meat at the local farmer's market, and I never had to deal with neighborhood politics or HOA regulations. That was until she moved in. Her name? Karen. Yes, Karen with a K. She had a history of changing her last name online, and it showed. She drove a white BMW and had platinum blonde hair that you could practically smell from miles away. Her aura screamed entitled suburban queen. Her husband? Who knows? He was always a ghost, but Karen's presence? You could feel it, especially when you got a passive-aggressive note from her or when she accidentally ran over your trash bins. I'm not part of the HOA. My property is outside their reach, and I've always been fine with that, until Karen decided that those boundaries didn't apply to her. It all started small, just a drop in my water pressure on hot days. At first, I thought maybe my well pump was acting up. But then, one day, I saw her through the bushes, Karen, in her yoga pants, happily blasting her driveway with my hose. Yes, my hose. The one that connects to an old garden spigot, which runs off a line that predates the HOA itself. It was a shared easement meant for emergency use, not for cleaning bird poop off a luxury car. I confronted her. I approached calmly but firmly and asked, "What exactly are you doing?" She smiled, all innocent, and said, "Oh, I thought it was community water. It's okay, right? We're neighbors." I told her, quite bluntly, that no, it wasn't okay. The water she was using came from my land, which I paid to pump and filter, and if I saw her doing it again, I'd be locking off the spigot. 2 days later, I padlocked it. But just a day after that, someone cut the lock. And guess what? Karen had attached a new hose, a shiny one, the exact kind she used to water her precious hydrangeas. I didn't call her out again. I'm no fool. I've dealt with enough HOA types to know they specialize in paperwork and sneaky tactics. So I set up a camera, a little one, disguised as a hummingbird feeder. A week later, I had proof. Karen had used my water 6 times, sometimes with her son, spraying each other like it was a water park. Once, she even set up an inflatable pool. I took the footage to the HOA. They laughed at me, saying that unless I paid my dues, I couldn't file a complaint. One of the HOA members, Greg, who always smelled like Axe body spray, told me I should be grateful I was contributing to the community's water supply. That's when I realized this wasn't just Karen. This was about power. They were testing the waters, pushing the limits of their fake HOA militia. A week later, I got a letter, unsigned but typed on HOA letterhead, accusing me of overusing the local water resources with my animals and threatening to report me to the city. The city, for using water from my own private well. At this point, it wasn't even about the water anymore. It was about principle. Karen had ignored every warning and kept stealing from me like she had some divine right. She thought I wouldn't retaliate. So I did. I'm not just a farmer. I've got a plumbing background too. I built most of my setup myself. I had a plan, one that involved a little rerouting, some valves, and timing. But I wasn't ready to execute it just yet. I wanted Karen to dig her own hole first. And oh, did she ever. She held a water conservation day in the neighborhood. Flyers everywhere. She even demonstrated how to wash your car without wasting resources, using my hose. That was the final straw. The next week, during a scorching 98 degrees day, I went to refill the water for my rabbits and nothing came out. Karen had left my hose running all night and 2 of my rabbits had died. That was it. I waited for 3 days, just enough to let the tank fill with, let's just say, leftovers from my butchering day. Thick, dark, and rancid. The next afternoon, I saw her in her usual getup. Yoga pants, sunglasses, spraying bird poop off her car. She hooked up my hose again. So I flipped the switch. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wouldn't she notice? Wouldn't she smell it right away? Turns out, no. The blood mixed fine with water, especially under pressure. It wasn't until it started foaming on her car that she realized something was off. The screams were a bit dramatic. And, of course, the neighbors were recording and the HOA president was gagging behind a bush. But here's the kicker. It wasn't even the end of it. Karen was still just getting started. You see, when you mess with people like Karen, they don't back down. They regroup. They escalate. And they drag you into a whole new mess of red tape and petty bureaucracy. 2 days after the bloodbath, I got a knock on my door. Not the police, not a neighbor, but a woman in a gray blazer with a clipboard. She introduced herself as Cheryl, the HOA's dispute resolution liaison, and handed me an official-looking letter. It was an invitation to attend an emergency water usage tribunal the HOA had scheduled for that Saturday. Remember, I'm not even part of the HOA. I don't pay their fees, don't go to their meetings, and don't care about their pet leash rules. Yet here they were, drafting up tribunal proceedings over a hose. They acted as if they had the power of the state behind them. It would have been comical if I hadn't seen how far they were willing to go. I asked Cheryl what authority they had to summon me for anything. She gave me one of those condescending smiles, the kind you get when someone knows they're pulling a flimsy excuse but is hoping you won't notice. Well, she said, your property is just beyond the formal HOA boundary, but the shared easement creates a gray area. As much as Karen believed she could push me around with her fake HOA power plays, I quickly learned that there's a limit to how far you can go before karma catches up. Every move she made was another misstep, another twist in the saga of her entitled suburban crusade. It became clear Karen's vision of controlling the neighborhood was built on delusions of grandeur. The moment she thought she could cross the line with my water, it turned into a battle of wits, and she was woefully unprepared. But here's the thing. The real victory wasn't in flushing her system or confronting her directly. It was in taking control of the situation and making sure she realized that no one, not even her, can play by their own rules without consequences. Revenge, as I quickly discovered, isn't about ending on a high note. It's about being prepared for the long haul. When you deal with people like Karen, it's never just a one-off victory. So, let them bring on their tribunal. Let them act like they have authority. At the end of the day, they're just pawns in their own little game, and I'm the one holding all the cards. And Karen? Well, she's only just started to realize that the real lesson here wasn't about the water. It was about respect.